Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for all those good speakers. And I'm very honored to speak after a woman to watch, as you will see in the CVs that were sent around. And now I know why. And you know why? I think the interesting element that Candy brought into this discussion is this political element. And she's probably the second woman to watch after my wife, by the way, who is not an economist and who said early on in the crisis, she's American too, by the way, when we went to the States, she said, oh, we are in a crisis, we are in a recession. I said, no, we cannot say that because we haven't seen the NBR figures yet. It's the NBR who decides when we have a recession, but she knew much more. So just to make the point, we have to think out of the box and to go along, and the economists are particularly bad placed, and especially in this crisis, they lost some of their reputation. And just to continue with this defeatist things that also were introduced by Emilius, I run you through a few slides. Here's the, So just to, why I was invited here is maybe also because I'm one of the organizers of a dialogue, and talking about dialogue, that's very important. What we have in the OECD, I work for the Committee on Financial Markets, and we have a very important dialogue with the private sector, which we call the OECD Financial Roundtables. And these financial roundtables give us very useful insights into how the market works, how the private sector sees things, how things are really working out there outside of the ivory tower that we regulators and our governments don't always see. So I want to address 3 points, and I have only, in fact, this should be my only slide. That's all I have to say, as I have only 10 minutes. What I was going to tell you is the current situation. Where are we now? Where are we coming from? What are the problems? Second is, where are we going to? What is the new financial landscape that we need, that we are trying to create? And the third point is, what do we have to do to get there? And talking about the financial landscape, we at the OECD in 2009, we issued a small booklet that you can find on the internet. It's called The Financial Crisis, Exit and Reforms. And people are saying, oh, exit, that's way too early. You're talking about exit. We're still in the crisis, which is true. So they had a point there, but the reforms, talking about the new financial landscape, what we laid down there, I think is still relevant. And I will make a few points. So where are we now? Where are we coming from? We have a very weak recovery. I mean, we are still, some people say we're still in the crisis. In Europe, we are talking about the triple dip. In Italy, you're talking about the triple dip. In some other European countries, it's not going well either. François Fillon was just quoted yesterday in the press saying, oh, France is running towards the next big financial crisis. So it looks pretty dark. Emerging markets are also have slowing growth. The US, as always, they're the first ones to stand up. They fall and stand up very quickly, so the US is doing pretty well. But the point here is this uneven recovery creates tensions in terms of policy requirements, in terms of monetary policy. The US will exit earlier than Europe. That will create some imbalances, and this is potentially problematic, and vulnerabilities that are already there will be increased, and this is something that we need to watch. So the current environment is still predominated by a very, very low interest rate. Policy rates are low. It's really this big liquidity that has been injected into the system by the central banks. This low yield makes investors search for higher risks, so risks are building up. That's a problem. And at the same time, what reforms are doing, they're trying to make the banking sector safer, and pushing all the financial activity towards the non-banking sector, call it shadow banking, which is good, which we want to have, and I'm coming to that in my next slide, but also this creates risks, and what we have been recently observing is that the leverage has been rising in the non-financial non-bank sector. So this is one of the problems, and so these imbalances and the differences in recovery and the long dragged out crisis from which it is very hard to exit has created some reform fatigue. And as Candy rightly pointed out, some also nationalism is rising for many other reasons, but also in terms of regulation. There have been reforms, gold plating in certain countries, in certain jurisdictions that were not coordinated. Gold plating is not so bad, and we can see that. I remember when the Volcker rule came out in the US. US was the first one to deal with the bank separation issue. We at the OECD, we had our Secretary General say at our website, it's very supportive. That's a good thing. So the US has thrown down the gauntlet to the other regulators. So it can be a good thing to go ahead and to do things on a national basis and go ahead. The question is how problematic that is in terms of if this imbalances in this national regulatory specificities persist in how far this creates regulatory options for regulatory arbitrage, unlevel playing fields and all that were in fact at one of the origins of this crisis.